of civilization where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers bled through the parched earth of Mesopotamia, humanity first trembled at the whisper of blood-drinking demons. These were not mere spirits but harbingers of unspeakable evil, born from the primal darkness of creation. The Lilith, vile night wraiths of Sumerian lore, slithered into the dreams of the living, their claws draining vitality, their eyes gleaming with unholy hunger. Among the Hebrews wandering the desolate sands of Canaan, these horrors took root in the form of Lilith, the first wife of Adam, whose rebellion against divine order birthed a legacy of malevolence. Cast out from Eden, Lilith became a demoness, her womb spawning abominations that craved the blood of the innocent, their existence a curse upon the earth. These ancient tales were not of mortal creatures, but of infernal forces, embodiments of chaos that mocked the divine. For the Hebrews, blood drinkers were not mere monsters, but omens of spiritual decay, their hunger a warning of the abyss that awaited the unrighteous. Yet, as these stories spread through trade routes and exiles, they were twisted by the malice of those who heard them, becoming a mirror for humanity's darkest fears, and a weapon to wield against the Jewish people, whose very existence seemed to provoke dread. In the shadow of King Solomon's reign, when wisdom pierced the veil of the divine, Hebrew scriptures whispered of Alukah, a creature of ravenous evil named in Proverbs 30:15. Described as a horse leech with two daughters shrieking, "Give, give!" Alukah was no mere beast, but a demon of insatiable bloodlust, its existence a blight on creation. Scholars of the Tanakh, their faces gaunt in the flicker of oil lamps, linked Alukah to Lilith, the rebel of Eden whose name was synonymous with darkness. The Babylonian Talmud, compiled between the 3rd and 5th centuries CE, painted Lilith as a seductress of unparalleled malice, her claws sinking into men and infants, her thirst for blood a punishment for defying God's will. Her offspring, numberless and vile, were said to haunt the night, their whispers luring victims to their doom. By the Middle Ages, as Jewish communities carved out precarious lives in Europe, their folklore grew darker, reflecting the terrors of their world. The Sefer Hasidim, penned by Judah ben Samuel of Regensburg in the 12th century, introduced the Estrie, a female vampire whose evil knew no bounds. These creatures, cloaked in the guise of pious women, preyed solely on Jewish souls, slipping into synagogues and homes to feast on the blood of the faithful. One tale told of an Estrie, her face pale as death, attempting to drain a sleeping companion, only thwarted by a vigilant watcher who defied her hypnotic gaze. Estries could shapeshift into cats or crows, their long hair weaving through the air as they flew, a mockery of divine creation. Even death could not bind them. Their graves were sealed with earth stuffed in their mouths, a desperate ritual to cage their malevolent spirits. The Estrie was a symbol of betrayal, a fiend born from the fear that evil could lurk within the community itself. In cities like Worms and Mainz, where Jews lived under the constant threat of Christian violence, the Estrie embodied the dread of those who might turn against their own, corrupted by the pressures of persecution. The Sefer HaRokeah, written by Eleazar of Worms, detailed grim rites to banish Estries, from earth-stuffing to prayers invoking God's wrath. The Zohar, a 13th century Kabbalistic text, spoke of demons born from the other side, a realm of impurity where creatures like Alukah and Estries thrived, their existence a challenge to the divine order. These stories, told in hushed Yiddish tones, were not mere tales, but warnings of a world teetering on the edge of darkness, where evil could wear a familiar face. As the Middle Ages descended into a maelstrom of fear and zeal, the vampire myth took on a new, sinister form in Christian Europe. The Crusades, beginning in 1096, inflamed hatred of the other and Jews living as outsiders in Christian lands. In 1144, in Norwich, England, a boy named William was found dead, his body untouched by blade or bruise. A monk, Thomas of Monmouth, accused Jews of crucifying the child in a blood-soaked ritual to appease their god. Metzitza B'Peh, a practice within the circumcision ceremony, Brit Milah. Performed by a mohel, circumcision sealed a male infant's covenant with God, and Metsitsa Bipe involved the mohel briefly drawing blood from the wound with his mouth to cleanse it, a tradition rooted in ancient beliefs about blood's sanctity and healing properties. By the Middle Ages, this practice, detailed in the Talmud Shabbat 133b, was rare but persisted in some communities. Christian chroniclers like Matthew Paris in the 13th century wrote of Jews consuming blood to commune with Satan, their tales echoing vampire myths of pale, clawed fiends. By 1171, in Blois, France, 40 Jews were burned alive, their screams drowned by accusations of draining Christian blood for Passover matzah or demonic rites. Jews were accused of needing Christian blood to renew their bodies, to summon demons, or to mock the crucifixion of Christ. This portrayed them as vampiric monsters, their synagogues dens of unholy rites where innocence was sacrificed. The accusation was rooted in economic and social resentments. Jews, barred from owning land, thrived as merchants and moneylenders, their success breeding envy among Christians burdened by debt. Their rituals, conducted in Hebrew behind closed doors, were seen as sinister. The Black Death, ravaging Europe from 1347 to 1351, deepened this dread. As plague consumed cities, Jews were accused of poisoning wells or spreading disease through blood magic, their lower mortality rates proof of demonic pacts. In Strasbourg, hundreds of Jews were burned in 1349, their deaths a sacrifice to a terrified populace. Cathedrals and manuscripts depicted Jews as clawed, hook-nosed fiends, their hands dripping with Christian blood. Folktales, later collected by the Grimm brothers, wove these images into stories of witches and monsters, their greed and cunning coded as Jewish traits. The vampire, a creature of Satan repelled by crosses, became a perfect allegory for these fears, its bloodlust a mirror for the imagined evils of the Jewish people. By the 15th century, the Spanish Inquisition intensified this hatred, accusing conversos, Jews forced to convert to Christianity, of secretly practicing blood rituals. Their Jewishness was seen as an indelible taint, a vampiric essence that could not be purged. The blood libel spread to Poland, Hungary, and Russia, each accusation fueling pogroms and massacres. The Jew, in the Christian imagination, was no longer human but a predator, a vampire draining the life of Christendom. By the 18th and 19th centuries, the vampire slithered from folklore into literature, its malevolent form shaped by Christian fears of Jewish influence. In Eastern Europe, where Jewish communities flourished in Poland and Russia, Slavic tales of Strzyga and Upior, vampires rising from graves to feed, echoed Jewish estries but were steeped in Christian symbols. These creatures, pale and gaunt, were outsiders, their hunger a threat to village purity. In 1819, John Polidori's The Vampire introduced Lord Ruthven, a seductive aristocrat whose evil lay in his ability to infiltrate society, his charm masking a predatory heart. Ruthven's outsider status hinted at Jewish stereotypes, his bloodlust a metaphor for feared economic and social influence. Bram Stoker's Dracula, 1897, was the vampire's darkest incarnation, a malevolent force born from Victorian fears of foreign invasion. Published amid waves of Jewish immigration from Eastern Europe fleeing pogroms, Dracula cast Count Dracula as a Transylvanian noble with a hooked nose, bushy eyebrows, and pointed teeth, his appearance a caricature of Jewish immigrants in British media. His castle, reeking of old Jerusalem, and his hoard of gold evoked stereotypes of Jewish greed. Dracula's aversion to crosses, his need to be invited into homes, and his insatiable bloodlust mirrored blood libel accusations, portraying him as a demonic parasite preying on Christian purity. His seduction of Mina Harker, a virginal Englishwoman, echoed medieval fears of Jewish men defiling Christian women, while his hypnotic control over others reflected anxieties. The 1922 silent film Nosferatu amplified this evil. Count Orlok, a grotesque rodent-like creature with elongated fingers and a bald head, was a walking caricature of Jewish stereotypes. His hunched form and claw-like hands, rising from a coffin like a pestilent blight, embodied Christian fears of Jews as a plague upon Europe. Released in Weimar Germany, where economic ruin fueled hatred, Nosferatu resonated with audiences who saw Orlok as the embodiment of Jewish immigration, a monstrous force draining the nation's vitality. Julius Streicher seized on this imagery, depicting Jews as vampiric bloodsuckers in Der Stürmer, their evil threatening the Aryan soul. The vampire myth birthed the vampire hunter, a figure cast as a righteous warrior against infernal evil. In the 19th century, Abraham Lincoln was mythologized in some circles as a slayer of vampiric forces, his fight against slavery recast as a battle against blood-sucking elites coded as Jewish. This narrative drew on fears of economic parasites, a trope rooted in blood libel imagery. In the 20th century, this archetype took a darker turn. Germany portrayed Jews as vampiric monsters, their influence a cancer on the nation. Adolf Hitler was cast as a vampire hunter, framed as a cleansing of this evil. The Holocaust was justified through this lens. Propaganda films and posters depicted Jews as bat-like creatures, their wings spread over Europe, draining its lifeblood. Post-war, the vampire hunter evolved to reflect new fears. John F. Kennedy, with his anti-communist zeal, was sometimes imagined as a modern Van Helsing, battling a red menace coded with Jewish traits in some narratives. By the 21st century, fringe groups cast figures like Donald Trump as vampire slayers, fighting a globalist elite portrayed with blood libel imagery, shadowy, blood-drinking conspirators controlling the world. These stories, spread through obscure pamphlets and digital platforms, kept the vampire's evil alive, its form adapting to new prejudices. Despite the vampire's malevolent legacy, Jewish storytellers sought to wrest it from Christian hatred, turning it into a symbol of defiance. In 1967, Roman Polanski's The Fearless Vampire Killers featured Reb Chagall, a Jewish vampire who scoffed at a cross, mocking Christian tropes with a defiant, "Oi, you have the wrong vampire!" This grim humor reclaimed the vampire, transforming it from a tool of persecution into a badge of survival. The Israeli series Judah, 2017, cast its vampire as a Jewish anti-hero, his bloodlust bound by kosher-like rules, his struggle a mirror of Jewish resilience. Unlike Christian vampires, Estries and Alukah in Jewish lore feared no crosses, their defeat requiring rituals like earth-stuffing or prayers invoking God's wrath. The Zohar described them as agents of the other side, their evil a test of faith. Jewish scholars like the Vilna Gaon framed demons as metaphors for temptation, while modern writers like Howard Schwartz recast Lilith as a complex figure, her hunger a reflection of human struggle. The vampire endures as a global icon, its evil softened by Hollywood's romantic lens in films like Interview with the Vampire, 1994, and Twilight, 2008, yet its dark roots persist. The outsider vampire, wealthy and cunning, echoes old prejudices casting Jews as blood-drinking elites. The 2024 Nosferatu remake, with its demonic Orlok, stirred unease among Jewish audiences, its imagery a reminder of past horrors. The vampire is a shadow cast by humanity's darkest impulses, its hunger a mirror for fear and hatred. From Lilith's infernal brood to the Estries' betrayal, from blood libels to Dracula's curse, it has stalked the Jewish people, a monstrous reflection of Christian dread. Yet, in its darkness, Jews found defiance, turning the vampire into a symbol of survival. The vampire hunters, from Lincoln to modern crusaders, wield their stakes against a perceived evil, their zeal a grim echo of ancient stories. In every blood-soaked tale, the vampire endures, a testament to humanity's capacity for evil and its fleeting hope for redemption. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this and would like to see more, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, uncover the truth and question the past.